want to say to you parents that it costs so much in time and effort and energy to separate toward God, to make that separation. And I don't want to make you feel guilty, but I want to tell you that there's a lot of parents are going to have to start volunteering their time. Volunteering their time. You may not have any money in your pocket, but you're going to have to give your time. You're going to have to present your time, a living sacrifice. You're going to have to give your time for this moment. Otherwise, you can kiss your children goodbye and send them to hell because they're going there. They are going there. The thief has come to steal, to kill and destroy. The cute people are sinning. The big people are sinning. The wise people are living in sin. And the only way there's a deliverance is for us to give them something bigger and give them something better. Children are hardened today. They're hardened today. They need to hear an old man's message. When they're 12 years old, they need to hear an old woman's message when they're 14 years old, because they've already felt an old man's devil. They've already felt an old man's devil. They've already felt an old man's demon. They've already felt an old man's curse. We're not dealing with kids, we're dealing with premature adults. They're adults too soon. They've been brought to the place where they know more about sin than some people did when we were children at 20 years of age. They know everything there is about hell and don't know enough about heaven, but they need God to set them free. Oh, God, they need His help. The time is now when God has to stir us. The time is now when God has to touch us. I would to God that we could have people here all day long doing something at this church. Calling somebody on the phone, ministering in one way or another. I would that we could have people who would be willing just to give of their help and their strength in this hour for the young people of this church, for the children. Listen, if this church is going to be worth keeping open, it's going to have to address the problem that our kids are going to hell, and they're going to go to hell until they are attracted to something that's more than what the world has, and it's going to cost us a lot to do it. How can you separate from the world? The more that we face economic difficulties, the harder it is. Because it means a mother has to be working because a dad's walked out of the house or he doesn't make enough to make everybody happy. So what happens? You can't, in this hour, mark it, you can't raise saints with mama working. And I don't want nobody, because there are times when you can't do it no other way, but I want to tell you, there's no way that you can raise saints with mama out of the house. You say, well, I can't do anything. I got to work. I didn't say you could. I didn't argue that point. But I'm just going to tell you, mama, you're not going to raise any saints. You just mark that, and let's just be realistic. There's no way that kids are going to make hard choices consistently, time after time, without encouragement, monitoring, support, and discipline. No way. Just call your child a non-saint. I don't care. It can't happen. Except God gives a miracle. It can't happen. And I know that in this hour that many women can't do anything else but work. So I'm not judging you. I'm not condemning you. But I'm telling you, we got a problem. And you can't have children living in a garage with a car running with monoxide gas. They'll die. They'll die without parental care. They'll die without parental care. It can't be anything else. and we do everything we can to get together and find a solution. There is no solution. We need God to do something for us. We can't do it ourselves. The mother goes away. The children are alone. The girl, like all of us, in younger life, at one time we can look back. Is boy crazy? The boy is girl crazy? And you think they're going to live piously? And they're going to say, Satan, get behind me? No, they're not. No, they're not. What made us behave is because Dad would give us a skinning if we didn't get in on time. The fear of our parents is what helped us. And in this hour, there is no fear in the heart of children. There is no separation. Mingling with the kids on the block. 2 blocks over, 10 blocks over, the gang down the street. We need in this moment a cry from God that says, help us, Lord. Help us, dear God, or we perish. Come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord. Be ye separate. You don't know how much I pray that this could be a possibility for our generation. All the gimmicks we have and all the toys we have and all the tools we have, we'd be able to sell them all and be glad if we could just be separated from the world. We'd be better off if we had a scrub board to wash clothes. We'd be better off if we had to mend socks. And we could look and see a separation between ungodliness and godliness and see our children on the inside. We'd be better off riding a mule if we had to, or a bicycle, and to have our children separated from the world. Listen, you got to put a price on your kids. Whether you can solve the problem or not, you have to realize that this generation is killing this race of people, destroying this people. You look around about and you see sin like never before. AIDS becoming a common complaint in this hour of history, even in Detroit. People dying of that cursed disease, and multiplied more that are going to. And in this moment we hear God saying, come out and be ye separate. And we have to answer and say, God, we don't know how. We don't know how. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the power. We don't have the ability. We are not separate. Young people raised in Christian homes. And the girls go out to the dance and the guys go out. And that's only the mildness of it. Courting the powers of hell, dating people that are ungodly. Listen, there's no hope if we let it go on. There's no hope some way, somehow. There has to be a deliverance. There has to be a relief. There has to be a release from the power of the devil. There has to be God giving something. The home cannot simply survive because a mother has said a pious word like, well, I just turned her over to God. You see a man standing in the street and a car speeding toward him, you don't lift your head and say, God, I turn him over to you. You may in another minute. But you yell. You scream, get out of there. You realize that if you can't get his attention, he's a goner. And so many of us Christians, that we don't know anything else. And I'm not saying that God does not have mercy upon his parents. But if you think you've solved your problem by raising your head and saying, God, I turn my daughter over to you, you haven't solved anything. You haven't solved a thing. If you think you've solved the problem by saying, Lord, I turn my son over to you, you haven't solved anything. And maybe you can't solve anything, but I want to tell you, don't be deceived. That doesn't answer the question. The question is there a way of being separated from the power of hell that's in this hour today? Is there the power to be separated? Can we be separated? Is there an ability to do so? I want to point out a few things that would have to be done for separation. If you're raising a family and you have grown children that are still living in sin, and you have smaller ones that you're raising, Those older ones that got to go. I just want to point some things out and not suppose that I'm some great Messiah, but I want to tell you, there's no way that younger will keep from being distorted if older ones continually participate in sin before them hour after hour, day after day. If you want to spare the young ones, you better realize that you've got to separate them somehow from the power of the enemy. That's one. Number two, children need to have friends. And if the only friends that you can have for your children are ungodly children, then there's no hope. Some way, somehow, they have to be able to have somebody that they can join to that will not take them to hell. There has to be a separation in the friendship that your children participate in. If at all possible, and if my spirit could ever get in hold of you people, we would wash cars, we would do everything in the world. But every parent here who has a kid in your family would be going to our Christian school if I had my spirit in you. God didn't give us a school that can handle almost 500 children with athletic field and gymnasium and everything else just to be a building